prove a lot right now if they want to beat us.
Okay, well, that's the challenge coming forward. Back to the couch.
I love it. And I think that we're about to start talking about the team mid-split review. We've picked 4 teams to talk about. We're starting with Bombers. You feel like that, potentially that's a bit of smack talk, but it's earned. Like, at this point in this split, relatively confident in saying it looks like Bombers are going to take it.
Yeah, it's just valid at this point, right? Like, does any team in this league have what it takes to beat Bombers is always going to be a question we have to ask now. And there's been expectations through the weeks. I know that Ejim last week was high on the Chiefs, perhaps against them, but they've already thrown them to the wayside. And handling Mammoth in the way that they did, they looked clean, and I don't know who can keep up with them yet. And you're looking at playoffs to grow into beating them.
Because let's talk about Bombers for a second. I tipped them as the best team coming into the split and thought they would finish top of the table. I think other people thought kind of Mammoth and Chiefs would be more ready-made and that some of the egos would clash. The one question I had is, did they have a shot caller? And I think that in modern-day League of Legends, like, that doesn't become as big an issue, especially when you play from ahead. Like, when you play from behind, you need a shot caller, I think, to, like, make the hard choices of, are we sacking Baron? Are we contesting Baron? Are we going to dive on which turret? Those kinds of things. But I think that when you're ahead, like, everyone just has really good ideas because you have more options. And what we've seen so far is that teams can't go with them at the 3 stages of the game. So ORD's beaten them in 2 early games. ORD actually has a positive deficit at 15 minutes versus the Bombers. And I think they've been beaten in like 28 minutes of total game time. And then I think Chiefs out team fight Bombers if it gets to like 6 item territory and they get there, but they're behind at 15 and 25 minute mark. And then I think if AV get like one of their crazy drafts, maybe they could. And this is the matchup I will never pick Mammoth to win because I think the teams are too similar. And then the Bombers are a better team. Yeah. Like, as in, like, I think that head-to-head, the players stack up very, very similarly. And then in every area, I just think, Bombers have them covered on that. And there's not an obvious area that I say, hey, Mammoth is going to win the game this way. So I think the only way they lose is if they make a mid-game mistake and Chiefs take them super late. If Avant get a really crazy, like, good draft, or if, like, Order or Gravitas, because Gravitas is kind of similar to Order, in my opinion, blow them out in, like, 15 minutes. And it's so hard to blow that team out in 15 minutes. Like, this is the reason they're not losing games. Because all those 3 of those things are much more narrow win conditions and just play good for 30 minutes and beat them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I would have coined the last game as, like, the sword against the shield in terms of styles, right? Like, Bombers are the aggressors. They'll always be the ones that make the first play. And if you are going to play defensive against it, no matter who you are, and it works for the Bombers, the game's over. Like, that's just how it feels right now. If they they take the first punch and it hits, there's no coming back. Like, they just seem that strong, which means that no one can play defensively against the Bombers. And that's why the win conditions feel so narrow.
Yeah. And I think we've actually got a graphic here for the Bombers in terms of some stats from the course of the split.
Their last 3 games, of course.
Yeah, there you go. And it's just win, win, win. And obviously 11 wins, 1 loss. They just look like you said, a team that have figured out how to be a team together.
And I think their 1 loss was like week 2, I think, against the Chiefs Esports Club. I think it was like week 2, day 1 or something like that. And I think like when you watch that game, it was Quinny K, like it was week 2, day 2 because they lost to Mammoth and then they beat the Bombers. And it was Quinny K, like he just had the best game raised, like just grabbed FBI and Rogue and like just threw them around Summoner's Rift a little bit. And that is the one area I would say has looked to be exploitable. They play very far up lane. If you grab them in laning phase, I mean, Jake and Dream were able to 2v2 kill them last week as well. I think that is an area that you can potentially look to pick on just because they play very aggressive. But apart from that, like we've seen no weakness in this team at all.
All right, well, we just saw the game between Bombers and Mammoth. Mammoth is the second team that we're looking at here. Let's get their most recent 3 games. Look, they're coming off win, win, win. And a loss, obviously, today. Jake, you were saying that Mammoth potentially are, player-wise, nearly equal, but don't cohese as a team. Rusty, would you agree with that?
I would agree, absolutely. I think that playstyle was a big difference, of course, between the teams as well. Mammoth strike me as the type of team that want to play slow and calm until they get to the 1 to 2 item stage. But they have been a team that, like, if you ask me how good are Mammoth, I couldn't answer it until I watched them play a game that day. That's how it often felt. And today was going to be the big test. You know, like, have they found consistency? Even if they lose to Bombers, can they give it to them? You know, can they make it a challenge? And that was thrown to the wayside. So for me, like, I don't know when Mammoth's going to show up or what it looks like, but I know what they want to be. And we know how good the players are to become that. So that's where it's a really hard crossroads.
Is this a team that if they stick together next split, can have worked through this, that it is a matter of figuring out how to be a team together.
Yeah, I think like the penny just needs to drop, to be honest, and I think a lot of that has to do with like Destiny and Babbitt, which is such a weird thing to say because when they played on the Chiefs together, it looked like they were on the exact same page. And there's lots of things that are adding to Swiper's resume, and I know this isn't a segment on the Chiefs, but like as a captain, like I think Swiper has really stood up to be one of the best captains because everyone that comes through that ecosystem just looks like really calm and sticks to the game plan, and then when they leave the Chiefs, like you see them fray around the edges a little bit. And Destiny and Babbitt's relationship to me seems to be a little bit like that. They don't have a primary engaged source that is willing to pull the trigger in themselves. It seems like Topoon is kind of micromanaging a team sense a little bit more than maybe you would like to see from a rookie, and Destiny and Babbitt can't get on the same page. And if your jungle and support aren't on the same page, they're not looking for the same roams, they're not looking for the same, you know, counter punches when people are invading on them. It's just so hard to play against the best teams in the OPL, and I think that's where they really fall down.
And if you think about the best teams in the world, like you'll often see the jungler and the support on the same page doing things together, especially in the mid game. And you know, anyone can do their own thing in the early game, but if that's a part where it feels like they're lacking, and I am in agreement with Spawn, actually, I think that that has felt off for me. But even in the mid game, the individual decisions, not just the team decisions, like Babbitt doesn't know when to push his luck when behind or to take things when behind. He just defaults to nothing. And that makes them lose more. And that's like another small symptom of the big problem that seems to be there.
Is that something you can learn easily? Or is that something that sort of comes naturally to you when you can...
It really, I think it comes naturally. So like the biggest example I will give is like in the OPL, even if we look just purely domestically, you name like great junglers. Shernfire was playing with Cupcake and Destiny. Like they were on the exact same page. They played around Shern. Then you talk about like, you know, Spooks and Ejim back in the day. And they were on the exact same page. At some points it was, you know, Gang for Radio. At other points it was like, okay, sack the new guy in Raze. Let's go somewhere else. And I think that what you just need is you need like a real crystal clear identity, and then you need to play it to almost a fault. I used to say this all the time about like the Chiefs in their prime and Direwolves in their prime. Everyone knew what they were going to do. Neither of those teams were revolutionary teams. Bombers are not a revolutionary team. You know exactly what punches they're going to throw. Then they land, and then you get knocked out, and then everyone goes, I knew that was going to happen. It's like, sure, but can you actually beat it?
Yeah, totally.
And at the moment, no one is going to be able to beat like those kind of jungle supports.
Like Mayweather in boxing, right?
Absolutely.
You know what he's going to do, but can you beat it?
Yeah, I think like all great sports teams, really, you know what they're going to do, and they have the advantage of the fact that because they're the best at what they do, they just get to keep practicing that, making all the other teams react all the time, try different strategies, change different things, and not find a consistent rhythm, which is very difficult. Next team. Order.
Talking about not consistent rhythm. Loss.
That's pretty consistent to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, they went on a 5-game winning streak, I think, and then they've pretty much gone on a 4-game skid.
We're on a roller coaster.
Absolutely, and talking about, I think your segue was really good about, you know, trying different things. Order was a team that was on the upswing, had the week where they tried the Nami Caitlyn and play heavily for bot lane Prio. Like, shit broke, and now it's just been a mad scramble to try and fix said stuff that was broken, and I'm really interested to see, because last week was promising. You know, Mammoth Bombers, both of those games were actually really close in my head. Both of them could have gone either way, and now, you know, they're going up against Chiefs, not an easier opponent, but they did beat them the first time around. I want to see if they can continue to show that upward trajectory again.
Yeah, and Order are like Gravitas to me in that every week they play, almost similar to Mammoth as well. You don't know just how good they can be, but you know how good individually they can be. And the only exception to that is like, we know there's potential in the bottom lane of Order. We know that Dream and Jake have got potential. They work hard. We've seen a lot from Dream's work ethic already, and he's very mature for a young player. But we haven't seen that consistently from him yet. And in some of the first defeats that they have, you bring up the Nami Caitlyn. I mean, the bottom lane's the feature there, right? That's a part where it went haywire and suddenly the game starts to go a bit crazy, and that lasts for weeks. So that's a big concern for me that I have to look at for Order and constantly highlight is how does this bottom lane go when they face adversity? And, you know, from the outside perspective, they lose for weeks after a single piece of adversity hits them. That's extreme.
In saying that, last week they did go up 75 CS and solo kill FBI and Rogue in lane, and then James got killed in lane, or Tally got killed in lane. So, like, it does seem to be a little bit of a mixed bag. I would say, like, the one consistent player in the lineup right now does seem to be Swiffer, but he's been relegated to Zoe's duty, and Zoe from behind, it can be like real rough to play, because if you're not actually landing those huge, impactful paddle stars, then she kind of does feel like, you know, old school Nidalee where you're just tickling people and running around.
All right, and finally, from consistency to a different kind of consistency, from the top of the table to the bottom, the last team is Direwolves that we want to touch on. I mean, Direwolves, it's almost hard to tell. You know, it's a bit like Bombers, right? It's basically an entirely new team. It's a you can't even compare it.
It's weird though, there was a Facebook poll the other day that I saw in a group that was like, who do you think will win the OPL split for this split? And Direwolves were second in the votes.
Yeah.
So like people
Just name
know the
recognition.
name,
Yeah.
you know, like they know Direwolves and they just expect them to be good, but they have just rebranded so strong, like so much effort goes into building something new that they aren't expected to start strong.
Yeah.
And even in the moments, the weeks where we were like, this is actually accelerating, like they're improving. You speak to Charlie, the coach of Direwolves, and he's like, we actually just, you know, we overperformed a little bit for sure, but you know, it's also the other teams around us just not playing as well, perhaps. Like maybe we're just going steady and it looked like a spike.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with Direwolves to me, right? Is it's going to be consistent. It's a split 2 thing for me at the very least.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to grow and develop.
Yeah, I think it's even longer. When you have a look at how young some of these players are, like if you said we're going to give them until 2020 split 1, I'd say that's an absolutely fine timeline. They're obviously upskilled up their coaching roster. You know, I know that both Pinch as well as Sharp are like heavily invested with these guys. So I just think that, you know, it's got to have time. And there were 2 different expectations. There was the fans' expectations. They've just won the last 4 splits. We expect great things. You know, put me on the roster. All of a sudden, you know, Coach Curtis will turn me into a superstar. Unfortunately, that would never happen. You know, so they went with Udisoft instead, and you know Toby is getting there. But I just think like anyone that actually had know-how on even what the internal dialogue of the Direwolves was, it was like, let's take the big breath and make the team that will eventually win Worlds. Like not win Worlds right now or like go as far as an Oceanic team can go in Worlds, right? It's like, let's not do it right now. But we think that the fundamentals of other players are a little bit broken, a little bit wobbly in areas. Let's start with new players and literally build them from the ground up.
Yeah.
And if they only get to the ankles or the waist or the knees or however high they get.
Or however you want to work this metaphor.
Building
The
those
framework
players.
still.
Yeah, building those players. And
scaffold.
it takes as long as it takes, in my opinion, because you have to be committed to what is the long-term vision if this is what your path is going to be, and it's just going to happen when it happens.
And you do need to just put up with a lot of, you know, struggle and adversity to get there. Do you think that Direwolves have that long-term stamina, I guess? They might have the vision now, but, you know, when it comes to end of split 2, if Direwolves haven't seen radical improvement, are they going into next year with this lineup, you know, basically intact?
So the one thing that I will say is like they are really good friends and very lovely people. So if there's like nothing else, that even through these defeats, they should be able to persevere.
Yeah.
And that's a big trust fall for the Direwolves, is that they know each other. And it does get tiring, right? Like losing every week is exhausting because you put in effort Monday to Friday.
Especially in scrims and stuff.
Exactly. You're scrimming every day and then you just lose on the weekend. It's exhausting, but they have each other to fall back on because they've built a good group of friends.
All I'm saying is if you win 4 splits in a row, you deserve a year of rebuilding.
Yeah.
Like, and Curtis, like in my head, was as much a part of the success recipe for success for anyone else. So if he says to Dave Harris and Rippy and all the other guys, like, I can do this, I would trust him. Like, you've earned trust at that point as far as like head coach goes. As long as Curtis wanted to stick to the experiment, if I was his GM, I would let him stick to it.
And despite everything, I still have enough faith in them to go like, yeah, mid next year, they're probably spanking everyone. And that's a beautiful, like, rags to riches story. All right. Oh my God, that was so much League of Legends talk in my segment. I just need to take a deep breath. I saw people in the chat going, why are they talking about League of this? Because it's mid-split. We need to review. We'll paint shit again. Don't worry about it. But
Please
it's time
don't
to
paint with shit.
dive into... That painting is beautiful. It's above you. It sees you always. We can't see it on camera.
It's terrifying.
We'll get a picture there. It's time for the next game. It's Order versus Chiefs. Some would say game of the day.
Some wouldn't, but some would.
Most would.
I would say after last game.
After last game, this is it, right? This has to be it.
The stage is set for this one to be the match of the day, that's for sure. But we've already spoken about Order. Well, we know what they can do, but we are yet to see that again as they've gone on a bit of a lost streak. But there's been some... Okay, a lot of a lost streak. But there's been some promising moments from them. So if they can all get it going together, then maybe they can keep it with the Chiefs, who have seen some defeats in the past week.
Yeah,
Well-
certainly have. I think that the one thing that you will say, however, is that Chiefs historically match up with the individuals of Order very well. Swiper likes playing against Tally. Claire absolutely loves playing against Swiffer. So,
That's true.
All right, well, we're going to see how it goes. The entire group picked Chiefs except for Jake, who's backing Order. So we're going to see how it goes. There are full limes on the table, and there are lemons on the other table. So let's throw to that table now.
I'm feeling a bit sour already. I've already lost,
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
way.
well, no.
But, well, I mean, if Jake loses, then we lose together, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, that's true. So you just
Yeah.
lose by default,
I'm
and you
screwed
maybe
no matter
get a
what,
friend.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Either way, it's
Bad
pretty
luck.
good. But I'm pretty excited to see how this game goes down because in many ways, like, while Chiefs are kind of like still this very, very solid team that have not yet or have been not infallible. Order have a lot to prove. Order have a lot of kind of climbing back up to do, and they've had like these games that have been very close, but they've still not been able to put it away. It gets a little easier after this. They will face off against Direwolves, but right now it's Chiefs.
And that's the thing, right? Like, to talk about in recent form, you come into this expecting Chiefs to be very dominant, and Order have looked very shaky, but Order do have the win over Chiefs. Like, Chiefs have lost
to week 2,
have lost to good teams. It's been Mammoth, it's been Bombers, and now it's been Order in week 2, which is probably the most upsetting one, right? Given the look at Order's form. So it is fairly interesting. Also, we just have, like, the couch hit on it, but it's important to know, we just have some of the most old school matchups in this game. Right? Like, first of all, you have the Spook Swiffer, Ray Swiper, the ex-2017 Chiefs, but then, like, in the solo lanes, Tally Swiper goes back, like, pre-2014. Like, 2013, there weren't even big Oceanic tournaments, and these guys were still playing against each other. Tally then was playing, like, AD carry, then he swift touched to top, and then he went back to AD carry, and then he went to top again. He's been all over the place, but, like, Claire and Swiffer, Claire was playing under East Rice years ago, and these guys have been staple OPL mid laners for just bloody decades. All over the place.
That's a long. I mean, that's like longer than I was watching League of Legends in general. So there's a lot of history going out there. But let's take a look, zeroing in on the game that we've actually got on hand at the moment. A couple of AD carry picks, or a AD carry pick banned away. I was going to say the Yasuo has been bot lane, so for Raze, that's banned out. And now we see Kalista first pick. Chiefs, they go for the Ezreal for Raze, but then instantly locking in the blind LeBlanc.
And it looked like a little bit of surprise on Dream's face there as soon as the LeBlanc got locked in, and I feel like blind LeBlanc is a very LCK thing, right? Like, Zoe is still up and available, but Jace is gone, Lissa's gone, and she is just a very obnoxious mid laner to play against.
Mid laner.
Yeah. Kalista priority this week has gone super high. That's a straight first pick, and that's fairly interesting. Raze does exactly what we saw last game the Bombers do, and answers with an Ezreal of his own. If they go, like, this could be a Kalista Thresh into an Ezreal Tahm Kench, and that would be a fairly standard matchup. I could see both of these guys opting in for that sort of thing, and just standard stuff.
Thresh priority remains pretty high, and despite the fact that he did receive a mana cost nerf on his Q.
Yeah, it doesn't feel the worst. Like, a lot of people nowadays are even maxing the Q. Like, you just put points in Flay for lane, and then straight max Q and the cooldown does go down.
It's not like you have a huge mana problems with Thresh,
yeah,
right?
it's not the biggest thing in the world. Silas priority, still, it's going to be super high. Can I just say also, whilst we're taking a look at Claire on screen, the Chiefs rebrand to, like, not the boys in blue, but the boys in black or white. Claire, as a long-time legacy mid laner, he's hardcore committed. His hair is in grayscale. He's all about the black and white.
Oh, I didn't even realize that picture was in color.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Yeah, wow. A good committing, for sure. Oh, speaking of banger. Oh, baby, we got a Kled up in the top lane.
Okay.
For big swips. I love this.
Yes, so when was the last time he played this?
Not this split, I know that.
Like, was it Rift Rivals? Like, is that too long ago? Because I know he was pumping it out there, but that is very long time, but a staple swiper champion in any top meta where the champion pools kind of get fairly small. Like, Urgot is kind of gone this patch, but Kled has just always remained for Swiper. He has those one or two. It's Rumble, it's Kled, and this time he's just going to pick it up. He has 2 bans, sorry, to go towards it if he needs it, but looks like with Jace off the table, he's just completely happy. That's a Syndra ban for the LeBlanc for Claire, and he's not even needing anything.
Yeah, so it does seem like Chiefs are going to be banking a little bit more on their top side of the map, but they do have a lot of strength across the board.
Yep.
For the Order side, it seems like they're already kind of setting up for that team fighting combination that they're going to want to execute. Order, we've talked about it for ages, that this is a team that just loves to play standard League of Legends, and they're setting up for that.
I feel like both of these teams, right? These, in the past years, like different rosters now, like in 2019, the game plan is still the same. They're just mallets. They just pick big beefy comps and they just run heads and like butt heads. And
I think Chiefs have multiple heads to their mallet,
Yeah.
though. I mean, you look at what they've got right now, and they've got some side lane threat as well. And if they add in this Galio, yes, they'll have a little bit more wombo in their combo. But I do feel like they're going to try and play more on the side lanes this game.
It'd be real funny if, like, OPL games just came down to who's got a bigger head. just bash it into each other. Would be interesting. Galio locked in terms of an answer to Thresh. Stylistically matches up pretty well. Galio CC is normally fairly delayed, which allows Lantern to be incredibly useful. But you expect the Kalista Thresh in non-strict all-in purposes. Like, they have just more consistent damage, proccing the Ws from Kalista. And,
new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Oh, if that gets locked in.
Order are pulling out all the stops this game. So we've got a Nunu already locked in. And let's see. Hovers are something I have tried to remind myself not to talk about, but I would love to see the Star Dragon. We may see something a little bit different than that. Or we may see something completely normal.
Come on.
It's a rise.
We want the Aurelian Soul. Nunu.
That's technically a flex, right?
Yes, like Ryze can go top, he can go into the mid lane, as can Sylas. So Tally and Swiffer do share a fair amount of champion pool. Tally, out of all the top laners in the OPL, is big on the majors, more so than anyone else. Like, if you're looking between these two, like, Swiper isn't going to be wanting to play Ryze. Tally, absolutely, he's, like, chomping at the bit to get his hands on majors and have some fun up on the top side of the map.
Jungler's locked in, so Nunu, and it's picked for only the Kazakhs. So we've seen some interesting choices here, but holistically, Bryce, talk to me about what these two comps are going to want to do.
Well, I feel like Order have much more of the 1-3-1, which is kind of ironic, whereas Chiefs, like, somehow have more of the hard force. Like, Swiper has an R button, Galio wants to go in, and they want to be looking for things. Eventually, if this game does go late enough, then Swiffer with TP versus Ignite in the mid lane, like, he's going to be much more of a side lane threat. Ryze is that champion where, like, in and of himself, he kind of just turns comps into a capable 1-3-1 comp, and if you allow that sort of style, they have a fairly defensive 3-man unit in the mid lane. Like, you have Thresh Lantern, you have a Nunu. And new Nunu isn't something we've seen a whole lot of in the OPL. I think this may just be the first pick on stage.
Not huge worldwide, to be honest. He made scattered appearances after the rework,
I think he's been played in the LEC over in Europe, and that makes a lot of sense.
That's the old splash art, too.
Yeah, because
they don't even have the new splash art on hand, man.
Yeah, they use, like, talking about, like, Europe, they do weird stuff. They innovate a whole lot.
Oh, yeah, I was working there for 4 years, man. I remember.
Which is cool to see, right? So new Nunu we'll speak about as we, like, track into this game, but yeah, this is certainly interesting. Like, Only is a big proponent of, like, the Olafs, the Sejuanis, the, like, champions where he's not, like, the hyper carry, that sort of style. So last pick is given to him in this matchup. He has targets to pick on. If you get a Kha'Zix onto a Kalista, if you get them onto the Ryze, then with a Galio can cause some havoc. So
certainly some lockdown. That Thresh Lantern is going to be pretty big, I think, for Order this game. And speaking of Order, joining us to talk about the draft and the match is, of course, going to be Choo-Choo's. Welcome to the desk.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah, and it's good to see you guys innovating as well. I mean, I'm just going to let the cat out the bag first. What's the deal with the Nunu?
Is that really a cat out of the bag? I think like we've seen
it's a kid out of the Yeti. I don't know.
I think. Well, I mean, I think we've seen it a lot.
Kid out of the Yeti.
That phrasing needs some work, I think.
I think. Yeah, no, we've seen it a lot in the world. I think we're probably one of the regions that is quite slow. Yep. Because I think everyone knows that Nunu's getting nerfed next patch, so we thought like this champion is pretty strong, especially when you have a strong bot side, like with the Kalista Thresh, so we can look at controlling bot side of the map. And we just thought like it was a great game to take it and show Sam's Nunu expertise.
Yeah, and like it's kind of like the last chance to get it in, if that makes sense, before the patch comes through. But I want to ask you like something more holistically based on what you just said. Like, why do you think OS is a slow region to adapt? Like, as someone who's been in the ecosystem for a very long time, like, do you have any thoughts? Like, this is a big philosophical League of Legends question.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
Like, any small thoughts?
I don't really think we are. Oh, sick! We got his flash. I don't think we are.
Okay,
I think,
nice backtrack.
I don't think we're... No, sorry. What I mean is I don't think we're slow to, like, pick up meta.
Yeah.
I think, like, we do create our own meta, in a sense, which doesn't mean that we are, like, oh, like, EU's playing this, like, that means we have to play it. I think people had that mentality, especially with Korea, for the past, like, 3 years, and then people realized the game's... Riot's done a really good job creating the game to be, like, you can make anything meta.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my
Also,
answer.
like, given that Korea has been the best for a very long time, and then China just won Worlds by, like, literally just fighting, right? Like, that, for a region like OS, that's super cool to see. I want to ask you about, like, confident levels in the camp. Like, this is a 5-game loss streak after a 5-game win streak. It's been, like, super high highs and then low lows for you guys. Like, how are you feeling coming into this game?
Yeah, it's been pretty rough. We started the split 0-2, and then we bounced back to, like, 5-2 was the best at one point.
Yep.
And now we're 5-7. So... it's been a lot of ups and downs, but I think our last week versus Bombers and Mammoth, we had quite substantial leads on both of them in the first 15 minutes, which proves that like we can contest like top tier teams. We really just needed to fix a lot of like especially the mindset in which we played the game. We've improved on that quite a lot, and hopefully like that'll help us get into Gauntlet and be in a high seeding ideally.
Looking forward to seeing how the team develops for sure. Thanks for joining us, Choo-Choos.
No worries, thank you.
All right, so no kills early on, but their
almost
level 1 shenanigans do continue. Raze has to play without that for a little while, and that means he might be a little more gankable than usual. But somehow I don't think there's going to be some early Nunu in the bottom lane.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. Like, his gank paths are more often than not just through lane. Like, Nunu isn't the best champion to bring with, like, a flash flay combo. Like, he doesn't have instant stuff to throw out. He wants to...
He's
literally
snowballing quite literally down the hill, yeah.
He has to just, like, slowly build it and run from a very long way away, and then he can let go and just let it wander forward. So Ezreal, one of the better champions to lose a flash on in the early game. Like, sure, it sucks in isolation. Like, very specifically, you never want to lose that. But
he's got an arcane shift.
He's safe enough. Galio is very good at negating enemy aggression. He kind of turns a lot of bot matchups into whoever goes first into the Galio probably loses, because then they're going to cop the full Q. He gets time to charge the taunt, has the E knock-up and stuff like that. And the reason that he kind of comes back into meta, given a lot of like the champions that we do see, like LeBlanc can grant him access to the backline, so can Kled, so can Kha'Zix. Like, these are just champions in this game. In saying that, here comes a snowball.
It's rolling.
It's doing a whole lot of nothing.
Minions.
He definitely just broke the freeze that Order had solely built for themselves. It still maintains somewhat. I do like, this hasn't been a thing since you've been on the OPL Pirate, but big skin guy, I feel like now that I'm not a pro player, my skin knowledge is certainly dropping off. My team likes to tell me that literally every day. Decoy has some strong opinions that I think are genuinely awful. But double Blood Moon Callista Thresh,
I do like that.
that's
the
old
synergy is
school.
important.
That's baller. That is a wise choice. I like that a lot.
No, big credit, big style points for Order for making that happen as well. Because everyone knows you skin to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you're not on the same page, then really, what are you doing? Because, like, on the other side of the coin, it's double red. Like, that's a red Galio, like red barbecue chicken Galio, and then you got Debonair Ezreal with a red chroma. So,
which I do feel
both
is
bottom lanes.
It is color coded.
Yeah.
But I am going to take some points off of the fact that you're probably not wearing that type of getup in a fast food chicken place.
Certainly not. It's definitely someone in an apron and then someone literally in a suit. As
Yeah.
Spooks is looking for round number 2.
This
Does find
time the
Ayla.
snowball lands, and he does flash away. Justice Punch is going to knock up, but that is still going to be first blood, and it goes the way of Spooks.
Yeah, and does track onto the Nunu. So round 2 is the dream there. They get the flash. They get almost everything from Ayla, and Galio not the best at running away. His E puts him back into the enemies before he goes forward. Kind of akin to Zoe. Everywhere you choose to go, you're just going to go back slightly, and he loses his life. So advantage for a Callista Thresh lane. Losing summoners against this style of lane is incredibly scary. They can start abusing you very, very quickly. The fact of the matter is, Jake still maintains his flash, so Ayla is in big trouble if he ever is in melee range of the Thresh. That's a flash play. You bring the Nunu in. Even if I say he's not the best champion, when you're a Galio, you're flashless, you're a very easy target to pick on, and that's why, literally, he just died.
And yeah, they priored him, too, because they knew Raze was going to be a little harder to gank. His flash will be close off cooldown.
Yep.
But it was a nice combo, and you know, I kind of have to eat my words from the start of the game when I said Spooks probably won't be down there too much. The first time was a bit of a laugh track, but this time it works out. And while we're here, can I just say I freaking love about the rework on the Nunu. I freaking love the ability change, the name changes. It really is the biggest snowball ever.
Oh, yeah? Is that what the ability is
It's
called?
literally called biggest snowball ever.
Okay.
Some are like really hard to like say as a caster, you know?
Yep.
Like
Sleepy Trouble Bubble?
Yeah, that one's not even that bad. I remember like old Urgot was like the biggest tongue twister ever. Hyperkinetic position reverser.
Yes. I mean, it's the switcheroo. That's definitely the switcheroo.
Well, and then like speaking of Spooks, because he's played some champions that have like really frustrating ults, like and abilities like Xin Zhao is like wind becomes lightning. It's like that's not an ability. That's literally a metaphor.
Yeah. See, I'm like. You're a caster, right?
Yeah.
I'm like a pro player turn caster, so I'm still
you're like, that's an E.
I'm the QWER train.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people play League of Legends like that, and maybe that's a fault
See,
of mine.
I went to the quick shot school of casting where like
Yeah.
you don't learn the buttons they're on, you just learn the ability names,
Yeah.
and then you have to remember what they're called. But some of them are cool, and with in Nunu's case, yes, biggest snowball ever is a fun one.
Yeah,
and he's back in the bot lane.
Very poignant, and sums it up very well. And you can see how many resources they're expending down here. Spooks is literally kind of just wasting his own time. He doesn't care about his jungle matchup in the Kha'Zix versus the Nunu. He is not a 1v1 champion. As long as he's getting things done for his lanes and he can build advantages, then he's certainly happy. So wastes his sweeper, is copping Qs from the Ezreal just to clear out that pink ward, and is able to do so. Claire gets a nice trade onto Swiffer. Ignite gets
Ignite. He's going to let the minions do the job as well, and Claire with a solo kill onto Swiffer.
Yeah, straight up 1v1. Spawn was saying on the couch that Claire loves playing against his old rival. No flashes burnt, but Electrocute, Ignite procced, and LeBlanc into Rise, and he falls down.
Yeah, we talk about old school, too. We haven't really touched on that top lane matchup because it's kind of just been a little bit of a back-and-forth push-pull fest. And that's been kind of interesting there. In fact, like, it seems like Swiper's pushed up quite a lot, but he is losing out on the farm game to Tally.
Which is super weird. Like, the camera hasn't been on it, so we don't know, like, he is just straight up missing CS. Like, he's missing cannons, he's missing melees. Because
we need to check up there.
Somewhat, like, as a professional player, that becomes almost unacceptable. Picks up that one, so that feels good, but he has had priority more often than not, and maybe just using his time to trade onto Tally. He does have the use of Skull, whereas Tally just has the W for
He was
the extra
dangerously low
sustain.
until that point, though. I think that was the big thing. Now, because of the bot prio that Order picked up from all this attention Spooks has given them, this does allow them to secure the first dragon.
Yep.
It is a mountain dragon, just like last game, so this is going to be a little bit less effective than, you know, maybe a Fire Drake or an Ocean Drake early on.
Yeah, if Order do have advantage going into like dragons and they get to set up, then Callista, she doesn't do Baron well, but she gets to execute it incredibly well. Nunu, the
like
same.
having a second
Callista,
fight, yeah.
Nunu, literally like the best champions to have on your team when you're doing Baron. The secure is just incredibly easy.
Order wants
Mountain
to give
Dragon,
himself that edge.
yeah,
to set
Mountain
up.
Dragon, like very good for them comp-wise. If they can start setting this up, like we're about 12, like 15 minutes away before that is realistically an option. But certainly does favor them, tracking into the later stages of this game.
Here's the edge, though, for Chiefs so far is that Claire has built up a lead over Swiffer at the moment, and Swiffer's going to be wanting to stack his tier up. He's not going to be as threatening of a Rise for a little while. But if Claire can keep stacking those kills and keep threatening the Rise out of lane, then this can start to get out of hand, speaking of snowballs.
Yep. Certainly could be the case as well. Only did win the race to level 6 in terms of the junglers, and he's had kind of free reign to do whatever he wants. Old school Nunu was like the... You want to isolate the jungle matchup, and like on a Kha'Zix, if you can take away his camps and go in there like poaching smite, you steal away things from underneath his nose, you can be incredibly obnoxious. This game from Spooks has been get bottom lane priority and see what they can do with it. So Only's just been free to clear things out. Kha'Zix's not the best farmer, but he's now got his evolve, he's hit that level 6 mark, and he's certainly looking to do some damage.
Yeah, it doesn't know if he wants to 1v1 onto Spooks, not with the double buffs on. Well, he's matched with the red. Just going to settle for clearing out some Visionos, so Spooks knows full well that he is inside the top side of his jungle. And Claire is in the area, too, with a soon-to-be-off cooldown Ignite, which means that Order do not want to go all in.
And in the bottom lane, some things are definitely happening as Ayla.
Okay, there was a 2v2 right there.
Top lane,
and that
though,
was
here we
quick.
go.
Meanwhile, we're turning our attention back up towards the top as Tally is going to get 1, 2, 3 punched. And he tries to walk away from it. Swiper looks to finish the job, but he paid quite a high price for that one.
Yeah, very nearly lived on the back end of that, but flashes burnt across the board. The hard commit from Chiefs top side of the map, and they do get something. Tally has no TP, so there's no way he's getting back to lane anytime soon, but Order, they trade bot side. We're going to have to see a replay of what happened, but they're getting mid plates as well.
Yeah, a lot of things just happened in the last minute, and it looks like everybody's just getting erased for some of these objectives. Here was the play in the bottom side. It was just the box, the catch. If you blinked, you missed it, and apparently you did in the replay as well. Meanwhile, though, Claire body blocking here, trying to take out the Nunu, but the absolute zero comes through, and Chiefs a little battered and bruised. Not sure if they want to fully commit to this Rift Herald. Decide to try and back away as Claire is going to have to distort back over, and Order come through and say thank you for the leash.
Whoa.
And I was just going to say, I don't know where Shelly is right now.
She has no idea where she is as well, I think.
Yeah, she is disoriented. Now she's dead. That's a sad end to that story.
That's a roughie. But let's just take stock of things that just happened, right? The bottom lane of the replay zoomed past our eyes, but that was just straight up a nice hook. Ayla didn't have flash yet, so he dies immediately. He goes down, and Chiefs, they look, their bottom side just dies. They get the dive top and Order a matching mid, so they're like, hey, maybe we have some time to take the Rift Herald. But I feel like this is back-to-back weeks where Order have just completely rotated towards top side of the map, and they've won a Rift Herald fight, which is very weird. Rift Herald is not an objective that you see fought over very often.
No, and
normally it's like a map split, and some team gets it, the other team gets Dragon.
And I think Chiefs just kind of felt a little bit of sense of urgency there. That yes, even though they got the playoff on the top side, Order was all of a sudden moving for 2 objectives at once, and I think that was the interesting thing. It's also the fact that they can finish it off pretty quick. All they had to do was chase Chiefs away.
Nice.
Great hook here onto Raze. He's going to be forced to burn both his flash and his arcane shift to get away, and Order are bullying the Chiefs bot lane.
Yeah, Jake is a support, and I've said this week after week. He used to be the Nami, the Braum guy that just walks around the map like floating behind the enemy support player.
Now he's a Hook City Thresh.
He's a defensive player, but this Thresh has been doing so much work. The level 1 gets the flay, means that Dream can chase up and they burn Raze's flash, the kill onto Ayla, and almost kill onto Raze. Topside Tally in trouble, though.
Yeah, blue smite on. Tally knows he's going to have to make a run for it here, and it looks like Claire's going to come in 1, 2, 3 again, and Tally continues to just get absolutely demolished, but on the opposite side, Order demolished first turret.
Yeah, but it's just how much Chiefs are having to commit to this play. Tally now 0-2 feels good for Swiper, but he's just even in CS. They are able to get things done, but Order, honestly, they get more on the other side. They got the Rift Herald, they take down the turret, and are opening up this game, and they certainly maintain the gold lead despite what's happening to their top laner.
Yeah, meanwhile, one-on-one still happens in the mid, but it's Swiffer who gets the better of Claire this time around, and this is Order really building themselves a nice lead early on in this game. They've got about 700 gold ahead of their opposition. And the biggest threat on the Chiefs side appears to be the LeBlanc, who's getting spoon-fed kills.
And it's just about Chiefs and their ability to open up the map. Like Claire, yes, he is bullying Swiffer in the mid lane. He has 2 kills over him, is building a small CS lead, but isn't able to exert himself onto a Rise in mid lane. Like, he has a turret, he has Aftershock, he can negate a lot of that damage. Now he's got the Mercs, he's not just like a tier Rise pottering around, very squishy. So they kind of want to open up the map, much to the benefit of their LeBlanc. She wants long lanes to find picks, wants to deny vision. Galio as well, like global threat. Swiper has the capacity to force from a very long range away. Whereas Order, you know, like when Chiefs have been making a play, they're just answering twofold. They're getting a kill on their bottom side, and Swiffer's pushing in mid where Claire goes to roam, and they're just answering 2 for every 1, and their small lead is just building in their back pocket.
Well, I'm not a math expert, Bryce, but I do think that that's usually going to give you an advantage.
Yep.
And yeah, this is why we find ourselves 14 minutes into this game with a slim but still extant gold lead there. Claire does jump onto Dream, but look at the damage he doesn't do. That's not that much for mid-game LeBlanc.
And Thresh players out there, you see Jake hook the distortion. That is straight up a mind game, but if that hook lands, that was moments away from being a dead Claire. That's a 500 gold shutdown, and that was a dangerous game he's playing, just looking for some damage. Does get healed up off the back end, but Order certainly looking for Dragon number 2. They're just looking to stack these up. Swiper does have TP, but classic Swiper fashion is just straight up rotating to the play. Chiefs, they want to contest this one.
Yeah, this should be a pretty big Drake in the early game as well. There's going to be another hook. It does land onto Ayla this time. The Thresh box is down. Dragon still aggroed up, and Order's attention is split as they were getting collapsed on by the rest of Chiefs. Looking for Ayla. They will finish the job. Dream claims him as the first casualty, but meanwhile, Swiper trying to force the fight. Takes down Swiffer here. It's a double kill for the Kled, and Chiefs might be able to turn this one. They absolutely do. Claire is going to grab one more, and Jake and Tally running for their lives at this point as Claire on the front line trying to distort, lands the chain onto Jake. Should be able to finish the job with Raze at his back, and that's going to be a sweet cleanup for Chiefs.
And what actually happened off the back end of that fight? Order, they hard commit to Callista. Throws his support into the mix, but just such a chaotic fight. The Ezreal, he shines. Kha'Zix gets on the back line, and that was Order committing for the Dragon. Tally?
Yeah, he lives. Very sustaining Silas, but yes, this was Order really hard committing, and they lose pretty much everything off of it. So now Chiefs back in the driver's seat with the Dragon, with the 4 kills.
Gold lead completely flips, and the member of Chiefs that doesn't die, it's Claire. Now 500 gold shutdown goes to 750. We take another look. They start this fight off with Swiffer getting fairly heavily chunked, and Swiper TP's in from top side. The Galio ulti splits off Dream, and he's just nowhere with the rest of his lineup. He's forced into this choke. Raze is hitting safely. Claire's hitting safely, as is only on the back end. And once the carries are dead, very nice arcane shift over the wall. Dream goes down. The damage just is not there. The Callista falls, the Rise falls, and Order's team composition, they fall with it.
Bit of a bait and switch there out of Chiefs, too. I mean, Ayla absorbed a heaping amount of damage, but he was still able to stay alive for a while. Now Swiper waiting in the wings here. In the event that Swiffer steps too far forward, he does not have flash, but he's playing towards the river.
The waiting game. How long does he wait? Swiffer has an inkling that nobody is catching the wave, and something is fishy. The bottom lane from Chiefs was floating down the river, looking to contest if Swiffer actually committed, but makes the right call. Does just back away. And
Or trying to roam as a unit as well.
A little bit of a Reddit thread, public service announcement. A lot of people, I feel like, don't know. Galio ulti doesn't actually have damage reduction anymore. It doesn't save people. It just gets Galio into the fray. It doesn't help out the allies.
Or in this case, make him untargetable for half a second.
Yeah, I learnt this like embarrassingly late, right? And I'm still functioning on the belief that Galio is just like straight up like saving damage. He's denying a lot of these things so the carries can live. But no, if you're not using Galio like offensively now more than ever, the pick is certainly a little bit weaker. Only gets
Tally
access to the top
continued to
side.
get bullied. That's a 5th kill for Claire.
This LeBlanc
That
is
is
a big boy.
that is that point when you just say Fed LeBlanc in game.
And it's a little bit of a roughy mid-turret. Demolish proc is going to be here from Spooks. Does get it off the back end. Lantern
Great Lantern.
to safety.
Like, despite the fact that Order have lost that big fight, I want to commend Jake for just being such a great Thresh this game. He's, as he misses a hook, has barely missed any hooks this game.
Yeah, well,
That was
I
kind of an
actually-
optimistic
look,
one,
as a support main, as a Thresh main, like, hook accuracy is a bad metric. Because good Thresh players, like, put you in situations where, like, you're just looking for opportunistic stuff. This, though...
Speaking of opportunistic, Swiffer gets knocked out of his own Realm Warp, and Swiper runs over him.
And Swiper just had the cheekiest grin on his face the entire time. Ex-teammates for 3 to 4 years here between these two guys, and Kled just runs down the Rise and Jake was saying on the couch, like, Swiffer has been one of the most consistent members of this Order lineup, but this game getting heavily picked on.
Double Assassins, Tally getting picked on quite a lot as well. Chiefs continue to just stack them up here, and this is starting to be danger signs for Order. They're losing a lot of gold, a lot of objectives, and a lot of time.
5 minutes ago, Order had like a 1.5k gold lead. The early game was tracking fine. They were picking on Rays in the bottom side. They were getting kills around the map, and all of a sudden, it's 18 minutes, a 5,000 gold lead, Dragon in the back pocket of Chiefs after that team fight, and it's just heavily switched back. Now that Chiefs are in control, they're one of the best teams at playing from ahead. They're very decisive. Claire's getting access to Tally. He's disrespecting the LeBlanc, the Kha'Zix. Their isolation damage in the side lane on a single target is incredibly high, and he's just dying for free. Swiffer gets straight up soloed in the side lane, and Order are just being disrespectful and losing kills across the map.
Yeah, I feel like they're playing with a bit of desperation. All of a sudden, what they were doing to try and grab multiple objectives starts to feel like greed as opposed to well-calculated gameplay. Order do knock down a tower in the mid, but it does seem like they're just 2 steps behind the Chiefs.
And you say the word greed. Claire goes back, picks himself up a Dark Seal into Medjai's. This has become a much more standard thing, but I feel like Claire, over the course of time, is becoming a Medjai's Goblet. And honestly, look, when you're a 6-0-2 LeBlanc, I back it.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like you're very confident and you just, you don't really need to play on the map anymore. You just do a bit of light reading.
Yeah.
When you're back at base, and all of a sudden you just boom on people.
Because it's kind of funny. LeBlanc is simultaneously one of the best users of Medjai's because, like, she just stacks. Like, she can force kills when she's ahead very easily, so she gets stacks all the time. Yeah. But then, like, a single mistake, she is so squishy. A hook, a Rune Prison from Ryze, like anything from Sylas, and you lock it down.
The thing is, she's not the only big threat on this team, right? Like, I mean, look at the rest of the Chiefs lineup, and you have a Fed Kled as well, who's going to be able to run all over side lanes and keep the rest of Order in check. You've also got a Kha'Zix who's been a part of a good chunk of these kills, and you've got the Ezreal, who hasn't got kills, but he hasn't died either, and he's just going to scale it up.
Yeah, and he's, like, not too far behind. He has the Klepto, so he's ultimately even.
Even if you lose Medjai stacks, you're still feeling pretty good if you're Chiefs.
Yeah, because you don't lose as many as you used to. I feel
big
like
Big snowball. Big snowball. Raze got, oh my goodness, he flashed away from it. That is a lot of respect on that one. Only is caught out.
Ooh,
Hook was a pixel away. And Only is running away from this one, forcing the flash. There's a true shot barrage. Chiefs trying to collapse on it once again. And it looks like Claire is going to pick up a few more stacks of that Medjai's as the rest of Chiefs are making Order run for the hills. Hook. The hook comes in this time, but Swiper is able to nullify it. And Chiefs walk away. For now, there's a bit of a chase going on. Only looking for Tally. Blast Cone, he is not going to live very long.
He's definitely running to the wrong side of the map, so maybe looking for the execute here. How long has it been? Only still has W. Probably won't expend the flash. Oh,
that's fine.
Doesn't have flash either.
Everything is okay. Only gets a kill. Thanks, Turret, for the assist.
W lands. Very easy cleanup, and the solo laners from Order having a very rough time. They looked for the engage, couldn't quite find it onto the Ezreal, but they've already hard committed. The huge flank comes down. Of course, Sylas gets to steal his own Kled ulti, but when you're not looking to fight the fight at that point, Swiper just comes through from the back end. The carries clean up, and this looks like a desperation Baron if I've ever seen one.
It does. Tally's not up for another 10 seconds right now, and he would have teleport. You did mention how this is a great Order setup for Baron, but the problem is if they don't live through the engagement, they're not going to last very long. Jake was very close to being a dead man right there, and Order are just going to back away with all 5 members. Chiefs taking up residence by the Baron, but you can see Only sneaking around.
And they're just going to start this one up by the looks of it. They have very good turn. Claire is super obnoxious over the wall. There's zero vision here for Order.
And they've got a Mountain Dragon to match.
That's what characterizes a Desperation Baron. It's like against the flow of the game. If you get to sneak it under your opponent's nose, then you can get back in. But it wasn't a setup play. They didn't have priority. They didn't have any vision. So they get forced off. They have to reset, blinking health bars all over the place. And Chiefs, that's the freest Baron of their lives.
Pretty much. So they pick up a first Baron of the game. Right now, 22 minutes on the clock, and the gold lead just keeps on rolling forward. 12-4 in kills. Chiefs have just been mopping the floor with Order in these fights, and it really just goes back to that Dragon play 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Huge team fight gets turned around, and it's just been the Chiefs show from that point onwards. Here, potentially a little bit of cheeky play from Order, looking to actually pick on the LeBlanc. Claire, if he follows this path, he's just going to keep walking into the bush. Wave does get pushed. They have Kalista ulti to throw Thresh over the wall if they want to, but Claire's in the bush.
A lot of time being spent, though, and Chiefs have to know there's nobody from the Order side of the map. That means there's going to be some free time on the inner turret, and it looks like the Gambit backfires.
Wait just long enough. They're going to have to sack this inner turret anyway, so Order, they look for Claire. He doesn't give them the pick, and they ultimately have to back away. They're not willing to lose inhibs to look for an opportunity, so turret gets heavily chunked. Snowball round number 74. He's going to run it up mid, but I feel like this one isn't going to force a
It's
flash.
actually a paper ball with that skin, now I think about it.
Hook?
It looks like they do try to get the play at this point. The hook goes in. Absolute zero is popped, but Spooks' health bar is at exactly that number. Dreamforce to flash away. The re-engage from Chiefs. Ayla goes down, and Jake is going absolutely nowhere. Gets
Claire.
boomed by the Kazakhs, and in the back line goes Claire. Charging through are the Chiefs with Swiper at the front, and this is nearly the team wipe.
And a Chiefs team fight is every single time Swiper at the front. That was a straight up 4 versus 5. Claire, the most fed member of this lineup, pushing bot lane out after the potential pick that all looked for, but he wasn't even at the play. It's a 4v5 and Chiefs wiped the floor. That's an inhib. They still maintain like half of their Baron, and they're setting up in both side lanes across the board.
Man, looking at a second stomp of the day, and I really expected this one to be a little bit closer with the way Order
Yeah.
started. It looked so great, but you make one mistake, and the Chiefs have completely recovered from 2 weeks ago when they went down 0-2. Not that many question marks were asked of them because it still looked like they were going to be in form. They were facing off against a couple of tough opponents, but they really have started to turn things around. And you got to think, one of the few teams they've lost to is Order, all the way back to week 2. This game has to feel cathartic for them.
And I want to have a bet. Is Claire going to get to 25 stacks or is he not? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Because I'm going to go hard no. We'll talk about that in a sec. This is...
The
like
game might end before it, but I think we'll get it in the process.
Yeah.
Here's the replay.
Like the hard commit, it's a flash hook to attempt to get on the Ezreal. If they get that pick, maybe they win the team fight, but Dream's autoing a minion at this point. Tally's running away. Swiffer hasn't used an ability. He wasn't at the start of this fight. Very nice commit here. The flank from Claire. Well timed with Swiper's ulti as the rest of the boys come charging up mid lane, and they were looking for something. Did not find it, and ultimately they get cleaned up. But
So Bryce, I wanna really quickly see if we raise the stakes here. Will you eat the lime that I was gonna eat if I win?
yeah, okay.
Okay, cool.
Because
On the record.
I was going to say, like, at the back end of that team fight, then, like, Claire's dashing in, like, double distorted, gets rune prisoned. Like, he's playing pretty in your face, you know, with the old 18 stacks. So we shall see.
I mean, at this point, it really doesn't matter too much how many stacks he's got because the rest of the team is bringing damage to boot. Claire on the front line. They knock in Jake's health bar down, and it's all going to be onto the Nexus turrets. 2 inhibs down here. Chiefs looking to end this game, and they're really trying to push the record.
Yeah.
Bombers set early on today. They got a 30-minute win or a sub-30-minute win, and it looks like Chiefs are going to do it even
Here
faster.
comes the force. Swiper's going in.
That's going to be the charge. True shot barrage. 1, 2, 3. Hello. It's Swiffer going down after this one in Order, fighting with their backs against the Nexus. But can Order turn this around?
Claire?
They've already found Ayla. Swiper going very low in this one. And it looks like that's going to be the Guardian Angel pop. Claire goes in, and he pops Jake's health bar. 24 stacks and counting.
I really hope he does not get one more, but Order, they have to force it. They're going to lose the game.
They're going to try it, and here comes the big snowball from Spooks, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. The snowball from Chiefs is a lot bigger, and Claire is going to try and get it down. 25 stacks, baby, and that is going to be the Nexus at 26 minutes. Chiefs affirm their dominance.
And that was just an incredibly dominant game. As soon as they get the lead, they take it over. It started well. They get Razor's flash level 1. You can hear the confidence in Choo Choo's voice. He's like, hell yeah, boys, we got a flash. That feels good. But as soon as a single mistake happened, as soon as the ball was in Chiefs' court, then Order, they just looked like they fell apart.
Yeah, and it was just so sudden. It was just such a big drop. You talked about how Chiefs are a team that looks so good when they're ahead. I feel like Order are kind of that team too, but you just haven't seen that for 3 weeks now.
Well, I mean, I somewhat disagree. Like, they do get ahead in the early game, but then it's like a single misstep. Like, last week, there was, like, I'm going to call Dream out. There's a death where it's like, they have the advantage. They're looking to reset, set up the map, and then Dream dies in the river. They lose all tempo, and they never get, like, the hard reset back to their play. And it's like a single mistake after a single mistake, and it snowballs into negativity, right? But, like, when you give Chiefs a lead, like, no matter what roster they're on, like, no matter what roster of Chiefs it is, like, once they get a lead, last year, they're the 20-minute Baron team. Hard Force, they're picking on, they're picking Sion, they're just closing the game out, and as soon as they had that lead, Swiper's coming in from the flank. It's Claire ulti, it's Claire from the bottom side with the flanks, and they just look like they're all on the same page, even when Order are looking to force.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to the strength of not just the Chiefs players, but also the organization for really making sure that this is a multi-generational thing that they've been able to accomplish. But incredibly well played, incredible performance out of Chiefs right now. To talk a little bit more about that dominating win, let's send it back over to the couch.
All right. Looks like Order this week, much the same as Order last week, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, once again, you know, they picked pretty heavily for, like, a strategy. Like, it was all about camping bottom lane. They gave away Ezreal for the exact same reasons. Wants to be able to get access to the wave and shove. Then you try and camp it out. You try and turn that into some objectives on the map. They got it. They got a dragon. They got a Rift Herald. They were able to flip the map and they got first turret. But the solo laners of the Chiefs just like put the big no button on it. Like Swiper got ahead, Claire got ahead, and then no matter how strong your 3 is, if every single time someone answers a side lane, they just die. Like it's really hard to play the game, and you just got to take your hats off to the Chiefs because that shows that they're a multifaceted team. You know, we normally say that they beat you through team fighting. Well, this time they beat you through, you know, killing the side lanes with the Kha'Zix and a LeBlanc.
That's it, and they really committed to it. You know, the first big thing that the Chiefs did that was good was the dive towards the top side of the map, and they made the conscious decision. All right, this Nunu is just bottom. He's just always there. So let's just make a play on the other side. We know that Nunu's not going to be here, and suddenly that becomes a free trade choice that they choose to make. But because they're good players, they execute well, they get the kills, and it starts a snowball. You know, it's a small ripple that ends up becoming a bigger deal for them. And those side laners, like Spawn mentions, just have too much control then of those side lanes, and it snowballs.
And the biggest turning point of this game was the second dragon that came up. And I want to talk about something that we don't normally talk about all that much, but it's on support and jungle. Generally, experience is the biggest stat in the game because you're never going to have enough gold to really be able to impact. So levels give you more than items. If you're a mid laner or an 80 carry, if you're ahead by 1,000 gold and you hit tab and you have 1,800 gold in your back pocket, you're down by 800 gold. And Swiffer had double amp tome tier, died, and then went back and completed Archangels, another amp totem, which means he's sitting on somewhere around 1,600 gold. So even though he was up on Claire in that team fight, he is legitimately just a 0 AP rise at that stage of the game, which means he's doing no damage. At the same time, exact same criticism can be leveled at Dream because he'd just taken, you know, big bottom wave farm, was rotating to the fight as well, was sitting on about 1,000 gold. So Chiefs ran out of base and teleported down, literally off a fresh shop, and like got access to the perfect 5v5 Dream team fight where Order had gone that far forward into the jungle. If they did not clean win that team fight, they were always going to get so slow chase. So I also just think that that's one of those examples of like, you know, this shows why Chiefs are such a good team fighting team. They understand even when they're behind what situations they want to take a team fight on, and you know exactly how they're going to execute and win those team fights.
That's right. Chiefs managing to take every team fight on their terms. Will Claire take this interview on his terms? Let's find out.
It'll be like the 26 stack on a Medjay's. Congratulations on the win. You guys really crushed it towards the back half of that one. Were you concerned when it seemed like Order was coming up in the early game, though?
To be honest, I don't really remember much of the early game. I just thought the state of the game was as expected. Like, I was waiting for a window, I guess, to make a roam or to make a play mid. And I think eventually when that did happen, I felt like I was in control of the game the whole time. So I don't remember too much struggle in the early game.
Just kind of zeroing in on those kills. And yeah, you were kind of all over the place, but you were almost constantly bullying Tally with the help of Only. Was this just the game plan to just make sure you kept the side lanes completely shoved and not let anybody push?
So I think we drafted a composition that we're pretty well versed in, especially after the past week of scrims. I would say we probably took a page out of Bomber's book. They like to play this kind of style. And I feel like with how we drafted and how the outcome of pick ban went, we pretty much played our comp perfectly. Like, we played it exactly how it should have been played with the sack bot lane, letting them just do their own thing, keeping up even in farm with Ezreal, and then just diving top on repeat, putting a lot of pressure top side, and eventually taking towers and Rift Herald.
Yeah, I think that's
which
fair.
We didn't get, though.
Oh, you came close. So, I mean, maybe not perfect marks, but you guys definitely showed up where it counted. It does seem like a lot of teams are really adopted, not just you and Bombers. It seems like a lot of teams in the OPL are really kind of going for that. Sack the bot lane, focus a little more on solo lanes and jungle. Do you think that's just the optimal way to play overall, or do you think it's just sort of what's taken a foothold here in the OPL?
I think it just so happens that, like, my philosophy is that you play the draft out, and then the game plan comes out of what champs you have. And I just feel like we're picking for strong lanes, and we're picking strong champions, and then you have this end result, and you just say, okay, this is how we should play this comp. So, like, Swiper wants to play Kled. He thinks he'll get a good matchup into whatever they pick, and then I want to early prioritize LeBlanc because I think she's a strong champion. And then it just ends up being, we have a really strong 1-3-1 comp, but we also have early pressure comp where we can, like, dive towers and stuff early. So I think it goes draft and then, like, sort of the game plan.
Cool. Great insight. Well, congrats on the win again, and thank you very much.
No worries.
Cool. Back to the couch.
Alrighty. Jake's gone.
It's me. It's the couch.